Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip how you think about compliance. We are taking professional ethics and elevating it from this basic, honestly kind of tedious tick box exercise straight to where it actually belongs. It is a high-stakes, strategic imperative for modern leaders. Whether you're a C-suite executive, a procurement expert, or managing multi-million-dollar programs, how you handle ethics is literally the ultimate test of your leadership. So let's just dive right into it. Just imagine making decisions that are completely legal. You know, you've checked the handbook, you've consulted the lawyers, and you get the green light. You are in the clear. And yet, those exact decisions trigger the total collapse of corporate giants like Carillion or end up costing organizations like Volkswagen over $30 billion. I mean, these aren't just PR hiccups. We're talking about existential crises born right out of what we call the multi-billion-dollar gray zone, actions that are perfectly legal but deeply, deeply unethical.
And that brings us to a really defining point. Most major scandals happen in the gray zone. You see, catastrophic professional failures almost never happen because executives blatantly break crystal clear black and white rules. They happen in those uncomfortable, highly ambiguous gray zones of daily management. It's that tricky space where the rulebook basically runs out and your own judgment is literally the only thing standing between strategic success and absolute ruin.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the gray zone dilemma, construct the architecture of integrity, analyze exactly why compliance often fails, put you in the hot seat with a crucible scenario, and finally, arm you with a strategic ethical filter.
Part 1. The architecture of integrity.
We first really need to distinguish between two terms that people constantly mix up. First, a code of ethics. This defines our unshakable moral principles, the absolute why of our organization. Then you have a code of conduct, which sets our specific behavioral boundaries, the how. Think of your ethics as your North Star and your conduct as the map. But as we all know, just having a map and a star doesn't automatically mean you know how to navigate the actual terrain.
The crucial missing link from most organizations is that third element, professional conduct. You've got your high-minded ethics and your strict conduct rules, but professional conduct, that's the daily execution. It is the action. It's exactly how you apply those high-level principles in the messy, incredibly unpredictable reality of the gray zone we were just talking about.
Think of this whole progression as a pyramid. Right down at the base, layer 1, you have personal integrity. This is your individual values, your moral foundation, and you simply cannot build a corporate culture without this personal bedrock. From there, we build up to layer 2, professional conduct, how you actually behave and execute as a professional in the field. And all of this culminates right at the peak, layer 3, lasting public trust. Without that base, the whole top just crumbles.
Moving on to part 2, why compliance often fails.
So here we have a massive clash of realities. On paper, these codes exist to protect reputations, guide decisions in the gray area, and build trust. Simple enough, right? But out in the real world, they routinely shatter against toxic workplace cultures where the mindset is just, well, everyone does it. They fail because of immense pressure from top leadership to hit targets at absolutely any cost. Far too often, ethics is treated like an annual dental checkup. You know, a painful once-a-year tick-box exercise you just have to endure, instead of a core strategic business function. When that protective intent collides with a toxic reality, the whole defense just falls apart. When leadership turns a blind eye, allowing weak enforcement or that tick-box mentality to take root, your organizational shield breaks. And that leaves you and the entire company incredibly vulnerable when professionals are suddenly thrown into high-stakes scenarios that aren't explicitly laid out in the rulebook.
If you take away just one crucial concept from us today, let it be this. Compliance is just the visible floor. It is literally the absolute minimum standard. But ethical judgment, diving deep below that surface, that is where true professional responsibility actually lives. When you're operating in the gray zone, where the rules are blurry or maybe even actively conflict with one another, applying solid principles and judgment is what separates exceptional leaders from everybody else.
Part 3. Navigating the crucible scenario. I want you to pause and seriously consider this question for a second. What would you do when absolutely no one is watching? Imagine a situation where a decision is totally legal, essentially untraceable, and, let's be honest, highly beneficial to you personally. The compliance floor says you're fine, but what does your ethical judgment say?
Okay, let's make it real. Here is your brief. You're a procurement manager, a long-term supplier who also happens to be a genuine personal friend, offers you and your team premium sports tickets. We're talking 800 pounds worth of tickets. The catch? This happens right before a major tender they are actively bidding on. Now, let's look at the context here. Your company policy vaguely allows for, quote, modest hospitality. So it's not strictly forbidden. And frankly, no one is ever going to find out. We are squarely in the gray zone. So what's your move?
Part 4. The Strategic Ethical Filter.
This is where the 5-step ethical filter comes in. By running our dilemma through these 5 specific questions, we systematically eliminate the guesswork from that gray zone. We take it from a vague, uneasy gut feeling and turn it into a strategic, highly defensible decision-making process.
Let's actually run our sports ticket scenario right through this filter. Step 1. Is it legal? Well, probably yes. It's not a direct bag of cash. Step 2. Is it transparent? Definitely not. You'd be hiding it under that vague, modest hospitality umbrella. Step 3. Is it fair? No way. It creates a massive unfair advantage going into the upcoming tender. Step 4. Would I defend it publicly? Absolutely not. Imagine the press optics of accepting 800-pound tickets right before a tender. It would be a complete disaster. And step 5. Does it protect stakeholder trust? No, it completely damages trust in your procurement process. So when you lay it out like that, the only strategic, professional decision is crystal clear. You decline the offer and formally declare it. The guesswork is completely gone.
Part 5. Summary. The Executive Imperative.
To really embed this into your organization's DNA, I want you to remember 4 key strategic imperatives. Number 1, ethics is a progression, moving from personal integrity all the way up to public trust. Number 2, compliance is just the bare minimum floor. It's not the ceiling. Number 3, never guess in the gray zone. Always deploy your 5-step ethical check. And finally, number 4, codes do not exist to restrict you. They exist to protect your reputation and actually empower your leadership. As we wrap up this explainer, just remember that ethics is so much more than mere compliance. It is professional responsibility in action. It's your shield, your strategy, and honestly, your ultimate competitive advantage. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. How will you elevate ethical judgment from a mundane compliance hurdle into your organization's most vital strategic asset starting today? The standard is completely yours to set. Thanks so much for joining me, and definitely try applying this filter to the next gray zone decision you face.
Learning reinforcement.
A corporate decision can be technically legal and still wipe out billions in market value while shattering public trust. The Volkswagen emissions scandal cost the company over $30 billion. They passed regulatory checks in the testing bay while hiding a deception that devastated their reputation. The collapse of Carillion followed a similar path. Legal accounting maneuvers masked a decaying foundation, eventually devastating public infrastructure and leaving thousands of workers unpaid. This is the multi-billion-dollar gray zone. The most severe professional failures occur here. They happen in the ambiguous spaces where policy provides cover for inherently unethical actions. Volkswagen and Carillion operated within the written rules while abandoning professional judgment. Protecting enterprise value requires more than basic rule following. Surviving at the executive level means mastering this exact space. Many boards assume a robust compliance department and a signed code of conduct guarantee organizational safety. This chart distinguishes compliance from judgment. The visible floor represents the absolute minimum standard, often a tick box exercise. Beneath it is ethical judgment, applying core principles when rules are vague. Most enterprise-destroying events happen in the gap where compliance ends and judgment begins. Relying on a static set of rules to govern a complex, ambiguous business environment invites systemic failure. If codes are engineered to protect organizations, we have to examine why they fail so predictably in practice. Boards deploy these codes to protect reputation, reduce risk, and guide gray area decisions. But these defenses dissolve when lack of training and toxic environments allow the everyone does it mentality to override written policy. Treating codes as mere administrative bureaucracy strips away their power. The architecture of integrity restores that protection. The Code of Ethics on the left establishes the why, forming the unshakable moral foundation and core values. The Code of Conduct in the center provides the how, the specific behavioral boundaries required to maintain compliance. Codes remain useless defensive mechanisms unless they bridge the gap between moral intent and daily executive action. Operationalizing ethics demands a rigid structural progression. The three-layer ethics model begins with layer 1, personal integrity. This is the individual moral bedrock of any professional. Layer 2, professional conduct, sits on that foundation. It is the daily execution of core values by procurement, finance, and project leaders. Layer 3 is public trust. This is a strategic asset generated only when the two layers supporting it are sound. The progression is clear. Personal integrity leads to professional conduct, which sustains lasting public trust. This structure serves as the primary barrier against catastrophic organizational risk. A moral compromise at the foundational base destabilizes the entire structure, making a collapse of trust at the top inevitable. Now, we can test this exact theoretical framework against the intense pressure of a real-world corporate environment. A procurement manager is offered £800 in sports tickets by a supplier and friend, just before a major tender bid. Company policy vaguely permits modest hospitality, providing technical cover. Because discovery risk is zero, the decision relies entirely on internal judgment. This low-visibility moment is exactly where compliance checklists fail, and executive judgment must take control. Surviving the gray zone requires an active heuristic to eliminate guesswork. The 5-step ethical filter begins with legality. In this scenario, accepting the tickets likely passes the technical legal test. The scenario fails at step 2, transparency. You would have to hide the gift. It also fails step 3, fairness. It creates a hitting advantage. Step 4 assesses public defensibility. Imagine the news optics of explaining an £800 gift. Step 5 confirms the damage to stakeholder trust and the process's integrity. The framework demands a clear professional ruling. Decline the offer and formally declare it to management. This filter replaces dangerous guesswork with strategic certainty, resolving the ambiguity of the gray zone. These core operational directives are the primary takeaways for any leader. Ethics is a structural progression from integrity to public trust. Compliance is merely the bare minimum standard. Deploy the filter to navigate the gray zone. These codes provide the tools to empower leadership and protect your reputation. This principle underpins CIPS, CIPFA, and PMI standards. It represents professional responsibility in action. Professional responsibility functions as an active, daily discipline that preserves true enterprise value